Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our April webinar. We are so excited about today. Our topic is a little different, and we think it's going to really help in the day-to-day. So we're really excited about today. So Jenny, can I have the next slide, please? So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Swati. I'm the CEO of Mila Associates. I do consider myself a serial entrepreneur. I've done a lot of different things the last decade and have been recognized for it. And if you ever want to talk CS or entrepreneurship or leadership, I'm here. So I do want to talk a little bit about Milo Associates. We've had a ton of change in the last year, and so I do want to call that out. So we originally started, we've been doing this for about 8.5 years, and we originally started in customer success, specifically recruiting. Now we do all revenue protection expansion. So what does that mean? Support, professional services, customer success, right? Implementation, onboarding, even sales leadership, because there's been so much change. And the revenue protection expansion is a phrase I kind of just made up. So I really like it, and I think it's going well. We mostly do SaaS and tech, and we started to do a little bit of manufacturing and consulting. So we're trying to broaden our industry base as well, which has been really cool. And usually people want to work with us because of our functional expertise in the CS and revenue protection expansion space. Next slide, please. So we have had so many big launches in the last 6 months, really. So now we have like 9 services. So here are 3 big services. We still do full search. If you have like 1,000 resumes, we can look through that and like help you find great candidates internally, which is our on-demand resume. And then we have our employee mobility program. So we are also helping mid-sized companies find and fill roles using their internal talent because we want to make sure people go internal first before they go external, because that really is what helps make a better culture. And then the last thing I'd say, and these are the rest of the services that we created. So we basically broke up the entire search process. So we can help you source, we can help you screen, we can do a job description audit, or interview process audit, right? We even created something for individuals. So we do job search coaching. It's just a quick hit, 30 minutes or an hour. You need help on a resume, you need help on interview prep, you need just help on job search strategy. Like we can help you. It's not a program, but it's 30 minutes or an hour if you just need a quick hit. And we also launched our swag shop a couple of months ago. So if you want really cool swag about customer success or professional services or operations, like we worked really hard on making them really fun and creative. So definitely check them out. They're really fun. And then you'll start seeing us kind of wear them. And I actually am using my first ever Milo Associates mug today, so I'm really excited. Um, so definitely check it out. So next slide, please.
Awesome.
And then today's topic, why everyone's here today, the success formula with Jenny. So I'm really excited about to introduce Jenny today. So I've gotten to know Jenny over the last year. The funny thing was we met in St. Louis at Pulse, at one of the events, and we were actually in a picture that we didn't even know we were in together. And it was just so funny. Like, so we were in a picture together before I even met. We had similar circles, we had some overlap, and eventually we started having these amazing one-on-one conversations about customer success and about leadership. And they just kind of developed into something that I've really cherished. So thank you so much for doing that over time. And we decided to partner together on a fun webinar. So I'm so excited. Jenny is a high performance coach, high performance mindset coach, and she's going to talk about some of her secrets today. So thank you so much for being here today. And I'm going to give you the floor.
Awesome. So honored to be here. Thank you, Swati. It's been so much fun evolving our relationship over the last year. And I think this is definitely the gooey butter on the cake, if you will. So today, really excited to introduce a framework called the Success Formula. And when I think about it, it applies anywhere to everyone. And broad things don't land well. So let's bring it into the lens of customer success because a lot of us are in that field. We spend so much time in CS focused on outcomes. Outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. And a lot of times we forget the leading indicators to success. So, what is it that sets us up for success? The same way we're thinking about what sets our customers up for success, we can do the same for ourselves. So, today we'll walk through the inside factors that set you up for success so that we can focus a little less on the tangible outcomes. Not that they're not important. Of course they are. Hello. We all know they are. But we can really shift our focus to understanding the internal alignment that fuels external success. So we'll walk through what the success formula is. We'll look at how to discover your unique success formula. Yes, they are unique to everyone. And then we'll look at how to implement. So this is a meaty topic. We're going to keep it very high level in the spirit of time. And I will do my best to make sure that you walk away with pretty solid understanding of what composes your success formula. So what are the ingredients, if you will? Lots of cake chatter today, by the way. Can make lots of metaphors to cake, but and what you do moving forward as an individual, maybe as a team leader, or even if you're thinking about it organizationally. So again, I'm Jenny. I am a former customer success leader. I still dabble and play, turned high performance mindset coach. So basically all that means is I think about all of the different thoughts, emotions, and actions that an individual takes, and I help them create greater awareness, create shifts, goals, action plans, etc., to move towards what it is they really seek. So I like to think of myself as a facilitator of the mind. Obviously, some of my work in customer success and experience lends itself really well. I don't know about you, but I was always thinking about how to hack my customers' minds. Now I get to help individuals do that personally. So we'll go right into it. The success formula. Like, what is this thing? No, it is not a mathematical equation. Sorry to disappoint for those of you that love math, but it is a compilation of what influences your energy. Yes, that woo-woo word energy. We'll dig in. But what influences it positively and helps you optimize performance. So we're thinking of everything from the lens of performing well, optimizing performance so that success is more likely. We're going to talk about energy, the woo-woo word of the day. A lot of people are a little nervous when you hear the word energy, like, oh boy, what kind of like, spiritual guidance thing is she going to talk about? But I'll bring it down to a very practical thought process. There are two kinds of energy. There is catabolic energy. Catabolic energy relates to catabolic hormones. So if you think of hormones like adrenaline and cortisol that we all know and sometimes have a little too much of these days, lots of stress, but they are real and they serve a purpose. So what they do is they break down the tissue and the cells. They give us energy to push through a stressor. They are meant to be short term, but they are destructive. They break down tissue and they drain the body, right? Short term, great, help us survive. Long term can cause lots of different health ailments and effects. So catabolic, the way I like to remember that is like a cat arching its back. Weird, I know, but that's how I think about it, like meh, like angry cat. Okay. Anabolic energy. This is your constructive, positive energy. So after those stressors are done, our body resumes normal hormonic functioning and we resume the anabolic energy process. So these are real things that happen in the body, but they also exist outside of it. So these two terms are important. They will come forward as we dig into the success formula. But when we're talking about energy today, we are thinking about the things that are destructive to us in our performance and the things that are constructive or anabolic to us in our performance. So the success formula is a set of factors, right? So there's this recipe that we are building that maximize your energy and performance potential. Everyone has a unique combination. And that's true for every situation as well. So this formula, while you'll have one that kind of generically helps you perform well, can also be different in different situations. So if you're in a personal environment versus professional, the formula for success may be different. How you are successful as a parent is likely a little bit different than your success formula as a leader at work. And so it's a framework and it evolves as you grow. It shifts over time, and it's something that allows you to just create greater awareness to understand what is happening in a situation, what I may be able to shift, and how I can, again, increase the likelihood of success. One thing that I like to talk about when we're introducing the success formula is a concept of mastery versus performance orientation. So, especially in customer success, but I think really business in general, we are very performance oriented. So, we're focused on those outcomes. We're focused on the validation that we may get, the pats on the back, the great jobs, the top 100 lists, the LinkedIn top voices, right? Those are all these kind of milestone achievements. They're moments in time. They're often driven by external motivation, right? So the desire to be seen, to be valued, to be respected, things that we're getting from other people. There's also a level of comparison in a performance perspective, right? So am I as successful as this person, right? It also creates judgment. Lots of judgment, lots of attachment to specific results. A lot of my coaching clients, we have to disconnect from validating who we are and our successes to the tangible metrics that we deliver. Yes, they are important, but they are not all that we are, and they are not all that encompasses success. Performance orientation also operates at a lower energy level. So judgment and lots of egocentric-ish thinking is catabolic in nature, and over time will lead to a decrease in energy. Decrease in energy affects your performance. So as we're going through today, I want you to think about situations in which you are in that kind of performance mindset versus when you are able to tap into a mastery orientation. This, for those of you that love different thought leaders out there, maybe you're Tony Robbins or Mel Robbins. Is it Mel Robbins and Tony Robbins? Are they both Robins? Anywho, they often talk about growth mindset. Growth mindset, mastery orientation are very similar. It's the focus on continuous development, that we can always learn something from a situation, and it defines success by that quest for mastery, right? There isn't this finish line that says, congratulations, Jenny, you have mastered this, right? We are constantly seeking the opportunity for improving. Thanks, Swathi. Confirmed they're both Robins. I said that out loud and I was like, wait a minute, are they both Robins? They are. So keep that in mind. We're going to look at moving forward in the success formula and thinking about it being more sustainable and powerful when built on that mastery orientation. So as you're going forward and starting to think about your own success formula, how can you approach it through a mastery orientation versus performance? All right, the good stuff. Let's start to come up with your unique success formula. So again, the factors in your formula allow you to maximize energy, not the woo-woo energy, the real energy, like your ability to perform and perform well, which we have to do every day at work. We need to hit the KPIs, we need to hit the metrics, we need the revenue retention, etc. So again, we're influencing the things that help us perform well. There are 6 core influencers. These influencers are all of the components of the recipe for success. Notice that none of them have to do with KPIs, but they increase our likelihood that we achieve the goals and outcomes that we're setting to accomplish. So the 6 core influencers, one is spiritual. Connection to purpose, meaning, values. So this is not spiritual from a religious perspective. A lot of people see the word spiritual and immediately think of a religious organization. It is not. It is the connection to meaning, purpose, values, etc. The mental influencer, I see this one really impacting the majority of people in customer success and a lot of business in general, especially with AI. The mental influencer is our noise. It's the noise and the chatter, it's multitasking, it's do more with less. All of that affects our ability to perform. So we'll dig into that one a little bit more later, but our ability to access focus and clarity and thought patterns, right? Just clear-minded. And then emotional regulation and resilience. So hot topic, I think everywhere is employee engagement is down and people are feeling disconnected from work, is this idea of emotional security, safety, being able to be emotionally resilient, emotional awareness. I talk to a lot of leaders who are seeking a new role and they're like, I want an organization that is emotionally aware and celebrates emotion in the workplace. When historically emotions were like, can't be emotional at work, right? Like can't do it. What does that mean for us if we're emotional beings? And if emotions are a part of our success formula, how likely are we to succeed if we're in an organization where we can't be emotional? The physical influencer. I think about this one when you are planning an event, right? And you've got this outdoor event and it's so exciting and you've got the caterers and the whole experience designed, and then it rains. By the way, it rained on my wedding day. So I have experienced this one, right? So the physical situations that support our success, this can be getting enough sleep, eating well, can be the weather, right? Depending on what kind of event or thing you're working towards. So those are some examples of the physical influencer. The social, these are, I think about introverts and extroverts immediately, right? So if you are highly introverted, are you in an environment that's forcing you to spend maybe too much time with people? Maybe it's just too much peopling for you. Anybody spent a few days at a conference and needed to just go in the hotel room and shut the door and be quiet? Likely your stress reaction, too much socialization was at play. So these are those relationships and interpersonal dynamics. So not just the amount of time that you're socializing, but who. So I don't know about you, but I've worked for some not so great leaders. I've worked for some exceptional leaders. How did those relationships impact the likelihood of my success? What was important in the people that I worked with? And then the environmental influencer, right? So again, this is your office. I don't know how many of you follow Christy Falteruso. Guilty. I mean, if you don't, what are you doing? Wonderful. She posted on LinkedIn this week that she designed an entirely new office space that was more conducive to her success. So a great example of that environmental influencer. Her environment is very important to her ability to perform well at work. I read that post and I was like, oh my gosh, your post is exactly what I'm talking about on Thursday. So here we are. But again, setting the environment up that leads to your success. So maybe it's an office space. You went from an office to an open environment. How does that help or hinder your ability to perform? So I'm going to pause, and I know we're not engaging in a live situation. You guys are in chat, but I want you to think about a time when you were successful. I don't care what you were doing, personally or professionally, but as we move through the next few slides, keep in mind that moment when you were really successful. What was aligned from a spiritual perspective, right? Was it the connection to the purpose? Maybe you are working for a mission-driven organization and that connection to purpose is really important to you. It allows you to feel less friction in your work. Therefore, you're more motivated. You're able to show up authentically and excited, and that energy allows for great things to happen. That's an example of a component of your success formula. So if that's you, write that down. Alignment with vision, values, and goals. When you think about an organization, how important are an organization's values? If you're like me, they're really important. Value alignment is extremely important to me, right? When an organization's operating in misalignment with something that's important to me, we have friction. When there's friction, we have stress. When there's stress, I'm not able to perform as well. So, starting to think about some of these clues and situations in that example of when you were successful. Was something aligned here, right? Were you fulfilling a desire? Maybe you'd always dreamed of getting up on stage and presenting, and you did it, right? You were fulfilling that desire, this kind of quest to do something greater. So, what were those certain little things from a spiritual perspective that allowed you to perform well, right? To allowed you to be successful? Now, let's look at the environmental influencer. Same situation. What were the conditions? What was the setting and surroundings you were in? What were you wearing? I don't know about you all, but when I have to go perform and I'm in clothing that just doesn't feel well, like I do not do well with like rayon. You can tell I've thought about this a lot, right? But like I don't feel great. And when I don't feel great, I'm stressed and worrying about my clothes and maybe fidgeting in my seat. So those things do actually impact our ability to perform. And then technology, right? Technology. Zoom outage yesterday. Anybody? Anybody on a call with a customer yesterday or their teams starting to blow up the Slack channels about Zoom not functioning? That's an example of the available use of technology. When it's gone, we go into stress mode. When we stress, we're not able to perform. So, what environmental settings, surroundings, etc., do we need to be successful? What is true for you? The social influencer, your desired amount and type of social interaction. I think about, are you great in working with teams? You might have someone on your team who prefers to work alone. If they're constantly forced to do group work, that might add stress and hinder their ability to perform. That may also be true for you. And then your attitude towards working with others, the influence of other people within your organization. So the team dynamic, your ability to communicate. I worked for an organization once that just said, we're going to be bad at communicating. And I'm like, that's not good for me, right? Like that's a key factor in my success. So we're going to need to find another way, right? Or else the likelihood of me succeeding is going to be lower. And the presence of support systems. So again, as leaders, we can think about the social influencer. I do believe this to be so important for people these days, especially coming out of COVID, where we were so disconnected and we felt the lack of social engagement. And then we moved into this digital world where we've maintained this disconnect. So if you're thinking about it from a leadership perspective, how do we bring the team together more often if we are remote first? How might that be important to helping some of the team perform well? Maybe even understanding what level of engagement fuels their success. So a lot of ways you can think about this both personally and with the teams that you lead. A physical influencer. Oh my gosh. How many of you have been so stressed out working on a project that you didn't stop to eat? You barely drank water. You definitely didn't sleep. And then you wonder why it didn't go as well as you thought it would. These are all really important so that you can show up at your best. Exercise, nutrition. I'm not saying you have to go cold plunge in the morning, though most founders tell you it is like the secret to their success. I cannot confirm nor deny. I have not tried it. But there are different clues that tell us if I haven't slept well, I'm not performing well. Sleep is really important to me. It is a key indicator of my ability to perform well. So lots of different things from the physical perspective. Your mental influencer. Oh, we talked about this one earlier. Huge. Multitasking is the biggest stressor. Multitasking does not actually exist. All you're doing is rapid firing your focus and attention to a bunch of different areas and it actually stresses you out. So if you want to talk about how to stop multitasking, come find me after. But this is how we access creativity and intuition. And I don't know about you all, but there are times at work when I'm just so in the weeds of do that I don't actually have time to pull back, to think, to focus, and to get creative about how to solve a problem. So one of the important things for me in my recipe is that I'm able to create space to think, that I'm able to slow down, and that I'm able to say no when I'm overloaded. Hard thing to do. Totally get it. And we'll talk through that. And the last one's the emotional influencer. So again, the ability to understand your own emotions. If you have situations happening outside of work, right? Maybe you've lost a pet. We had to put our dog to sleep over Christmas. I was not showing up at my best. I was emotionally exhausted, right? I didn't have access to the full realm of emotion. I was overwhelmed with sadness. Also, the ability to express emotion. So, if you are somewhere where you're not allowed to have facial expressions, that's going to be stressful if you're an emotionally expressive person, right? So, what kind of environments and what kind of emotional expression is important to you? Where is it most authentic? Where is it most at ease? And then emotional control. I work on this a lot with coaching clients so that we're not reacting, but we're able to respond. So, some tools and tips here. Same with the mental. Maybe it's breath work. Maybe it's different frameworks to pause and practice. But what situations, from an emotional perspective, allow you to perform at your best? So when we put it all together, we come up with these kind of overarching ingredient statements. So, for example, the spiritual, I want to remember how connected I am to the mission of my company. Leaders, your team will forget what you are doing. Remind them often. This spiritual influencer for you as individuals, for your teams and your organization. So if you're a founder, critical. Remind people why they show up every day and do the work, right? What is the impact that we're making? People are looking for more connection at work. Make sure you're reminding them that it's there. But as an individual, you can also remind yourself, right? I get to show up and help customers solve problems. These problems that we're solving lead to X, right? We can think about the bigger picture and the ways that we're creating impact and purpose if that is a key ingredient for you. The mental influencer, maybe it's a reminder to stay focused and undistracted. Maybe we need to go do a calendar overhaul. Maybe we need to put up some boundaries, right? There are a lot of different maybes here for you, depending on what it is. But the mantra is, I am most successful when I'm able to stay focused and undistracted. Emotional, no matter what happens, I'll stay calm. I think of like the big sign, like stay calm, everybody. Like not realistic all the time, right? We work in business, things go wrong. So, how can we set up systems to support this statement? I am most successful when I remember that no matter what happens, I can take a breath, stay calm, and figure it out. Physical, stay loose and relaxed. Maybe it's putting 5-minute walks in on your calendar to move because you know when you move, you feel better. When you feel better, you're less stressed. When you're less stressed, you perform better. The social, remembering to enjoy those you're with. Um, Everyone is not going to be peachy keen, right? We are not going to get along with every single person we work with. I am fully aware of that truth. This is where empathy comes to play. So, how can I see things from their side of things? What might they be going through? How can I get curious, right? How can I lean on my emotional connection and maybe my spiritual impact of helping others to solve a social problem? So, these are all not individual, they all kind of weave together. But really, it's figuring out the recipe that is true for you. Environmental. I'm going to take a moment to notice the beauty around me. I don't know about you, but there are days when I feel extremely overwhelmed. And I go outside, I live in Florida, and I look at the trees and I'm like, they're green and it's really pretty and it's going to be a great day. And I just take that moment to remember that, like, I'm surrounded by beauty and that there's an opportunity in everything. And I'm able to go and put my mind forward to get to work. And again, that kind of overarching philosophy that we talked through. I'm seeking long term mastery, not outcomes. The outcomes will come when we optimize our ability to perform. If we are performing well, the likelihood of success is greater. And then again, skills. We can even start to build in, hey, speak slowly. Jenny, might be telling myself this right now, and clearly when I'm talking to others. So you put together your entire little recipe card, and it will help you as you move forward. A few exercises to help you uncover this formula. So we thought about specific situation when you were successful, looked at the influencers that were at play. Great way to do it. You can also start logging your energy. No, people don't like that word, but it's a great word. What's giving you energy? So maybe it is working with other people. There's a clue for your social influencer. Maybe it's not working with people. Also a clue for your social influencer, right? So note when your energy is depleted or fueled. Certain types of work. What are they? Who are you doing it with? What is the impact that it's making? Pulling the spiritual influencer. So you're starting to pull together all of the different components that give you the clues to help you figure out what leads me to success, what situations, environments, etc. There are different attitudinal assessments. I have one as a coach called the Energy Leadership Index, the ELI, that actually measures energetic presentation. Swathi, I know you're going to ask me what that means later, so I'm going to wait for it. Basically, how we're seeing the world, by the way, the little sneak peek. Myers-Briggs, if you've ever done those, there's DISC, there's Hogan, there's a whole bunch of these assessments that help us understand how we are experiencing things that could be really helpful clues in building your success formula. And then the other thing that's super critical is identify the blockers and triggers. What are the stories that you're telling yourself? What are the things you're assuming to be true? Where are you maybe judging yourself a little too hard? What are the expectations that you have for yourself? And these are things that I work through with coaching clients all the time, but there are different ways to self-coach. So if you're examining an influencer and you believe something to be true, one of the easiest ways to look at it is to say, where did that come from? Or according to who? And just make sure that it is something that you have thought of and not a story that you're interpreting or assuming from someone else. But those energy blocks can be huge in aligning us for success. I could talk about those for like 6 weeks straight, just so you guys know. And then observations and reflections. Once you've gotten your formula, what impacts that energy and your ability to perform? So, what types of things send you down into like the freak out spiral? We've all been there. But what's happening? Which influencer is maybe not aligned? And what do you need to move it back into alignment? So, it gives you a really easy way to just say, hey, this situation really bothered me because it's against one of my core values of family. It took away my family time. It was disrespectful for a lot of reasons. I also didn't do a great job at setting a boundary here, right? I said, yes, I'm willing to work till 10 p.m. So, what can maybe we do and adjust next time to ensure that we are aligning on the things that are going to move us forward with optimal success? So, to recap really fast, I understand, but hopefully you're starting to think about the different components to your recipe. Your unique success formula is a compilation of the influencers that most significantly impact your performance. So, again, we're raising the likelihood of success through optimizing for performance. So, let's talk about how to implement, right? We've got this thing. What do we do with it? We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. I love this quote, Aristotle. We're going to look at what's missing. Any situation, we've got our success formula. What might be missing in this situation? What has changed? We get a chance to re examine, to be keenly aware. Awareness is super important here, and decide. And if there's anything that you take away from this time today, is that you get to decide, you get to choose where you go from here. Okay, you can continue to be a victim to a situation, or you can take action and align in a way that drives and fuels your success. The choice is yours. You always have a choice. The other things I recommend is to start small. So maybe you're realizing that a lot of your influencers are misaligned lately, right? The last time you went to find a job, things were easy, your marriage was great, the weather was fantastic, the market was wonderful, all of those things, right? So where can we start small? Maybe it is getting realigned with the spiritual influencer. Maybe you start focusing on finding a mission-driven organization. Or if you're a leader and it feels like the team is completely out of whack and misaligned and misbalanced, maybe you need to just define and clarify the mission and purpose of your team, the goals, and connect all of that together, right? So revisit that kind of spiritual influencer, get them reconnected to the greater purpose and mission, and then work together to move forward. So another thing that I love to help people do is create reminder phrases. Post-it notes. Anybody a fan? I have them like all over my computer screen. You can't see here. But what are those little key phrases that will help you as you're moving forward? And it can be something like, I do this because I love it. Some days maybe we don't feel like we love it. So that little reminder of like, no, I do. I do love it. What is in this situation that is hindering my success? And how do I want to go forth and conquer? Can also set them in your calendar. You could set them in Slack, wherever it helps you see them every day, just to reinforce what is true for you and what will lead to higher likelihood of success. And then the other things, creating scaffolding. I love the word scaffolding. I always think about like building your building, and this is, the scaffolding of your support system. So setting boundaries, not something many people are great at. If you are great at it, congratulations. You can lead workshops on that because people need help. But setting and reinforcing boundaries. So if you set a boundary that you're going to be offline at 6 p.m. every night to make it to your daughter's dance recital, how do you uphold that boundary? How do you reinforce it over and over again? Hey, family is extremely important to me. I understand so is this project. What about we tackle it first thing in the morning, right? Make those recommendations, maintain your boundaries. Reinforcements. So reinforcements would be like reminding the team why we're here if you're a leader. Could be reminding yourself why you're applying for another job. Could be a reminder that you're looking for another role that is more aligned with what. So those reinforcements, similar to those kind of phrases, but reminding yourself why you're doing what you're doing. So it keeps going back to the why. And then setting time blocks and scheduling, right? So a lot of times we are just doing too much with too little time. Everything's always like, I don't have enough time. I don't have enough time. Okay, might be time to time block, right? Might be time to take a deep look at your calendar. Which of these are contributing to the likelihood of success? If you know you're not successful when you have too much on your plate, where can you trim? And what conversations might need to be had so that you can move to a pace that allows for a greater likelihood of success? And then again, define and clarify. My favorite thing always. I don't know about you, but this is something I pulled forward with my teams as a leader all the time. And I also asked for it as an employee. What are we doing and why does it matter? You would be surprised how often people forget, right? We choose a strategy. The strategy becomes the goal, not the goal, but it's the goal now. And we don't stop to say like, hey, does this still make sense against what we're trying to accomplish? Is this serving in the ways that we hope it serves? So lots of different ways that you can pull this forward as an individual, as a team, as an organization. These apply across the board. If you're a leader, I highly recommend you pull some of these concepts into your one-on-ones, right? Like, what motivates you? Ask them. You'd be surprised how many people aren't motivated by money. They're motivated by that spiritual influencer. And if you know they're motivated by a spiritual influencer, how do we align so that they are more likely to succeed? How do you like to work with teams and people? If I'm a hiring manager, it's a great question to understand what is that social influencer? What is the likelihood of success knowing how my team operates? If they like to work alone and you're a highly collaborative function and unit, it's not likely that success is going to happen, right? Because it's going to be so misaligned. There will be stress. Stress impacts the ability to perform. So just some different ways that this shows up in various situations. So again, start small, be consistent, track your results. They will change over time, depending on where you are. When I moved from a head of CS role into an individual solopreneur, whatever it is that I am these days, I don't like labels. It changed, right? What sets me up for success today is very different than when I was in that organization. So I had to go back through this exercise and say, what does that look like today? How do I define success? What are the ingredients that are going to lead me down that path? So, and I'll leave you with a quote before we wrap up, but a reminder that we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. So, outcomes, big goals, awesome. Let's increase the likelihood that we go get them by optimizing for performance and ensuring we are set up for success. So thank you for listening and digging in. Hopefully, you got some papers going. I do have a template to help you document your unique success formula, and you can compare it to a situation to understand where maybe things are misaligned, and it'll help you consciously choose how to move forward. So we'll be sending that as a follow-up. But as a reminder, I'm Jenny. I do coaching, one-on-one, team workshops, consulting. What we talked through today is actually like a much larger program. So if it is of interest, would love to just chat about it. Hit me up on LinkedIn or anything else. But Swati, I am excited to get in the hot seat now. Is she here? Am I alone? There you are.
No, no, I'm coming back. I lost the button for a minute, but I found it. Okay. Oh my gosh, that was so good. I loved the breakdown. I loved the exercises that you had in implementation. So it's like we can take this, what could be theory, into actual practical day-to-day use. So that was fantastic. Thank you so much for
Thanks.
doing that. And this
Yeah.
conversation gives me energy. So we were talking about energy, and I was like, this gives me energy. I love this so much. So I know we said we threw around the word woo-woo. I think this is important for every professional, but I am a little woo-y. So this is kind of just like really fun for me. But I want to back it up a little bit. So we're going to start off with a few questions. And then if anyone has any questions for Jenny, please put them in the Q&A. We'll make sure to get to them. I'm going to start off with a few questions of my own, and then we'll get to yours if you have them. So she's an open book, so please do that.
Indeed,
Um,
I am.
so what inspired your shift from customer experience leadership into coaching? I mean, that's a big
Mm,
change.
it is a huge change. Okay, I'm gonna try to keep this one short because I could talk for an hour about it. I leveraged a lot of the success formula. So those influencers and really understanding what success meant to me and understanding in my prior roles what was aligned and misaligned. And so one of the things that came to light in this situation was I had this like statement of truth for self that I thrived in chaos. Hello, startup customer success leader. That's what we do. We like throw us in the fire and we'll crawl our way out, glowing, shiny, better than ever. Um, and I think as my life has progressed and I realized where I get energy from work and what I get really excited about, the spiritual and the emotional influencers are really important to success for me individually. And not to say that I couldn't achieve that in a traditional role, but I realized that I also had the opportunity to do so at scale and create greater impact to more people. right? And so it was taking what I'd already done, realizing that like some of the friction points were just that situation, right? It just wasn't for me. It wasn't conducive to the likelihood of success that I was looking for in life. And so I broke down a lot of work. I figured out what I love, what I don't, where I get energy from, where I don't get energy from. And I took the leap and said, here we go.
I love that. It's so inspiring. Just a follow-up to that, do you think that it's important for folks to have like would all of us be need to have all of the influencers aligned, or do you think we're like I'm aligned to maybe two really, really highly and the rest are like don't matter as much? I'm just like
Yeah.
asking.
That's your formula. You might like to keep the ingredients simple. And if that leads to success for you, then that is your unique formula. So you do not have to like force fit all six,
Okay.
right? If you can do rain or shine and, hot, cold, and the environment doesn't affect your ability to perform, then that may not be a big influencer for your success. For
Right.
other people, right? Especially if you run cold, then that probably is going to cause stress and their ability to perform will decline if the environment's not optimal. So it really just depends on who you are as a person.
Okay, so based on your formula, you had to really figure out what was best for you, and that was coaching.
Yeah. Yep. And again, the purpose, mission, impact, spiritual influencer is really high for me. So is social, right? And so really leaning into the relationships where it was a give in a lot of ways, right? It was not a give and take or a give and nothing. And sometimes felt like we were doing that a lot. So how do I create deep, meaningful relationships? The social engagement's really important. I posted about that on LinkedIn not too long ago, but feeling connected to what I'm doing, knowing that it serves and is impacting others. So those acts of service, and then really deep, authentic relationships. So that social influencer, those were the two that you mentioned, two that are huge. Like that became really clear to me. Not having control over environmental factors was really hard. I worked with my executive coach on that a lot. So, there were just certain systems, Swati, that I wasn't able to optimize in that world. And so I said, well, what world can I optimize and lead to greater success and fulfillment? And that led me down that path.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Love the question.
Yeah, I love that. It's so inspiring. I think people knowing that like we actually have full control on kind of like what we do, even though it is, I mean, I'm sure you've worked, I know you've worked really hard to kind of get where you're at. But it's worth it. I mean, right?
Yeah,
I
it
think.
is. It is. It's very worth it. Yeah. I mean, less stress. So there's a lot of things like obviously our ability to perform and earn a living, which is important. Mortgages are real. I don't know anybody who can, I mean, I guess you could default on it and become, whatever, but that was not a choice I was willing to make.
Of course, yeah.
So,
Most people are willing
so
to make that.
yeah, yeah. But the likelihood of success when we have kind of structured things to support our quest for whatever it is we're looking to achieve, really does make a difference. You remove the friction, you reduce the stress. Not that it goes away, we all have stress, but how we respond to it, how we're able to adapt and adjust and pivot, that's where it becomes really, really just like the best tool that you can, right? Like the Swiss Army knife of conquering any situation that comes your way. You're ready to go.
I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that and for answering my follow-ups. So how did your background in CX shape the way you work with clients today?
So, funny enough, I think it's the other way around. Maybe no, that wouldn't make sense. Well, so I've always been extremely curious. So two things going for me. I'm obsessed with learning about other people. So I'll tell you, even senior year, spring break of college, and I'm not telling you when because I'll date myself. I went on a cruise with girlfriends, right? And they're all drinking and hanging out by the pool. And where was I? I was talking to the 70-year-old man at the bar, hearing his life story because it was fascinating to me, right? So there's just like people and their stories and understanding who they are and what makes them tick. That obviously lends itself really well to customer experience, right? What are you working towards? What's getting in the way? What are you striving to achieve? And it lends itself really well to coaching. So in the coaching world, a great coach is objective. So we're not bringing judgment or any kind of assumed bias to a relationship. We are there to really fully understand the person that we are working with, how they think, how their unique experiences have shaped how they see the world. So one of the phrases that I rarely use anymore, and I would recommend we don't use with customers, is I understand, because we don't. Right? It's just one of those little things that I've come to realize. But I think working with different kinds of customers, really working through different kinds of problems, seeing different things, was this a personal issue that was showing up at work for them? Or is this a work issue that's, become personal because it's affecting their likelihood to succeed? They want to become a CCO and they're stuck trying to get some things done. I was able to empathize and understand. There's the word. Um, but really dig in to figure out, like, how do we co-create solutions moving forward? And a lot of that is exactly what I do in coaching. So um, it really did just naturally lend itself well to some of the things that make a good coach.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
in CS, we often chase outcomes, right? So renewals, upsells, and our why can that external focus actually hold us back?
Hmm. Yeah. So what happens when we become hyper fixated on an outcome is we lose sight of all of the potential avenues and pathways and strategies to get there. So this happens a lot, right? We lock in on one way of doing it. Like we have to do this thing,
Yep.
and that thing becomes, we lose sight of the greater goal, kind of, right? Like, what are we actually trying to accomplish becomes the back burner that we remember only when the current strategy doesn't work well, right? If it's working great, we just don't even think about it. Like, it just naturally feeding. So, focusing more on where we are, what we're learning, how it's influencing, right? Getting really curious about, are the strategies that we are choosing leading to the metrics that matter? And if you're able to do that often, fantastic. I have found that most leaders aren't able to do that often. There are just too many things coming at us, especially in CS, right? Go get this product release out if you don't have a product marketing organization, right? Like, what? I didn't know I was a product marketer, but today I am. So, how does that influence the likelihood of our, retention rates hitting the goals and targets? So it's really kind of, if you think about it, the mental influencer at play. Are we focused? Are we clear? Are we able to reduce the noise so that we increase the likelihood of driving the outcomes that we seek? So if we just stare at the spreadsheet that tells us what our current retention rate is and wish it to get better, nothing happens. We all know that, right? But like we stare at it and hope it's going to get better. And then we just start throwing spaghetti at it instead of really thinking about, what have we learned? What's worked well? When we're performing at the peak, what is happening? How are our customers behaving? What outcomes are they achieving? How is the team engaging, right? So we can follow this same kind of process to really dig into the things that are influencing the likelihood of success.
Yeah, I love that. It's like you got to take a real big step back to like really leap forward, right? And then you just created a process behind that. I love that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Awesome.
thanks.
Well, I'm gonna I have a couple more questions, but if anybody has any questions, this is the time to put them in the Q&A, okay? So, okay, so how can CS professionals, a lot of our audience is CS, right? So start tuning into their energy or internal process without feeling like they're neglecting performance metrics, like the metrics that we just talked about.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's neglect. I think it's shifting the way that we're achieving, right? So
Okay.
obviously performance metrics are super critical, but I think it's also really understanding. So we hear a lot of people in CS, I don't have time. I am stuck in reactive. Things are coming at me. I have to take on more accounts, right? If you're in an IC role. If you're a leader, same thing. Like, I have less resources, not getting budget this year, right? So whatever the limit or constraint is, we can hyper focus on that versus, again, shifting to, what do we have? Where are we headed? And what do we need? Same thing for an individual. It's slowing down. And people don't like to hear slow down, but we
Yeah.
go slow down to go fast, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is there's that saying out there that it's like, um, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Is that what it is?
I don't know that one.
You've never heard that one? It's like an old Navy phrase. If someone knows it, drop it in chat to keep me honest. But we slow down to smooth it out. And then as we're moving smooth, we're able to ramp back up in speed. And so I think we're not focused on the outcome.
Mhm.
It's just we are more intentional about spending energy and investing energy in the ways that we know have a higher likelihood of leading to success. So, tactically at work, I think all the time around NCS engagement, right? So
Yeah.
you have to touch a customer so many times each quarter. Is that a worthwhile use of time and energy? Does it lead to the outcomes that we're seeking, right?
I
So you
don't
can pull
know.
all of it down to a very practical level to say, like, is this the best investment of our energy, our team's brain power and resources, and literal the ways that they're spending their time at work? That's all an expenditure of energy. Is it actually leading to the outcomes that matter the most? As a leader, I've done that exercise with my team and I found that the answer was no. Okay, so then what is it, right? Now I get the opportunity to go be curious and explore and reinforce what we know is working, what is leading to success.
Yeah, these are such important exercises that if people just take a little bit of time, it would just be immensely
Hmm.
helpful in the day to day.
Yeah. And our brain tells us we don't have enough time to do it, right?
I
It's
know,
like,
and that's kind of what's
yeah,
in my mind right
it's
now a little bit.
It's the counterintuitive. Okay, but if I slow down and stop, then all of this falls apart. And I've always taken the side of then let it, right? Because you'll get the opportunity to build it back better. And if an organization fires you because you took a step back to look at the big picture and make sure that you're driving towards success, that might be more about them than it is about you.
Yeah, it usually is. It usually is. So,
Usually is.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay. Um, so how can leaders use this approach to better support and energize their teams? You kind of just answered that a little bit, but anything else you kind of want to add to that?
Yeah. I like to pull it forward into one-on-ones and team meetings, right? And
Okay.
so one of the things I mentioned is if you look at all of the influencers, you can ask questions like, "Hey, or how are the systems that we are currently using helping you to do what you need to do?" Right? Get curious about it. A lot of times it's a procurement driven initiative, and the next thing you know, you have this tool and you have to adopt it and use it and implement it. And as a leader, like, are we checking in to ensure that we're not creating more stress by forcing them to use something that isn't driving likelihood of success,
Yeah.
right? So we're following this same kind of pathway of evaluating and examining. Maybe it's return to work, right? We know a lot of return to office is
Ooh,
happening.
there's so much
Yeah.
tension around that.
Yeah. And so, individuals have gotten very comfortable at home. We're in our routines. We make our lunch. We walk the dog. We maybe throw laundry in, guilty. Um, so not being able to spend our time, right? That reduces the stress that we have as individuals because we're able to do some of that throughout the day and not be overwhelmed come the weekend time. And then Sunday scaries hit and we're back on Monday.
Yeah.
So really taking a minute to understand how can we meet our teams where they are instead of the big shift, rip the band-aid, back to the
Mhm.
office you go? How do we meet in the middle? And I think some organizations have done this really well with like hybrid, flexible. But I also am like, what is the goal of bringing everyone together? Here's our social influencer,
Yeah.
right? So if social interaction and collaboration is important to the team, how do I pull that forward and reinforce that this time together is important for a lot of different reasons? I've heard many of you enjoy and get a lot of value in spending time together. It's a part of our quest for success. So, how do we optimize the time we have in office together? How do we ensure that you're not dreading it because that's a stressor that affects performance, right? So, how do we have more conversations to really understand what's going to fuel team success, thus customer success, thus organizational success, and what is maybe something that just doesn't? And can we eliminate it or can we work around it? How do we get creative?
Yeah.
And one-on-ones, Swati, I think this is also like what motivates them. It's going to be one of those influencers. It
Mm.
just is. Money, yes. There's also something else. 99% of the time, money is leading to something else. What does the money allow you to do? Feel
Right.
safe, feel comfortable, right? Like there's another motivator. Maybe it's taking care of their parents, right? Okay, so money is important. It is a tool so that you can do what? That's a social influencer. So having those conversations to really understand the individual, what leads to their greatest likelihood of success, and then pulling that through in how you lead. So especially if you have a larger team, this is a little harder to do. Not impossible, but get to know them, get to know what leads to high performance, and then you can leverage that. Delegation. If someone's not challenged at work and needs more challenge, delegate. Give them that hard project that you don't have time to do and let them level up. They're seeking it. It's important for them and their success and performance. Give it to them.
Yeah, I love that. Like the world's changing. People are becoming much more aware. Like use that to the team, the company's advantage.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one last question before we close up. Let me just pick a really good one. Give me 1 second. Ooh, okay. I'm going to end with this. So, what would you say to someone who feels like they're constantly drained but doesn't know how to break the cycle? I feel like, we did something locally like this last night, but I love that this is obviously coming to a national audience and all levels. And it's just, there's so much stress was talked about yesterday that was out of our control. Um,
Mhm.
so if someone's constantly drained, how would you recommend they break the cycle? Because I feel like a lot of people are feeling that right now.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely recommend identifying the triggers. So I am a like pen to paper, write it down, put it in your Apple Notes or whatever your just get it out of your mind choices. So maybe it's every time there's a new news article about the stock market or whatever kind of traumatic situation has occurred. I know we had one this week in Dallas. I'm not going to talk about it. But what is it? Okay, so you can choose to turn the news off, right? Like, how do you then reduce your exposure to the triggering things? It is hard. What are you afraid of if you turn the news off? Well, I'm afraid I'll lose out on X, Y, and Z. Okay, how do we find that information? So, one, identifying the triggers. Two, recognizing the choices that you have to reduce the engagement with said trigger. The third is to find your support system. So whether that be therapy, coaching, depending on where you are, maybe it's talking with a leader more candidly about what's going on and how that's impacting performance. Friends, I think really that time to connect and find your own unique support systems is key. But first and foremost, if you're on your own, figure out what it is, right? Start to break that down. So, what is it that's affecting my energy? Is it a relationship with someone at work? Is it a relationship with someone outside of work? Is it work itself, right? And then at least you've got some clarity on, okay, now what?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, someone said they're constantly drained. Tracy recommended a book. So there's definitely be a lot of people feeling that. So thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Absolutely.
Thank you
My
so
last
much,
thing would
Jen.
be just
Oh,
reconnect with what's most important to you. Right? So a good thing to do is reconnecting with your values. Big fan of doing values work. But getting back to the core of what is most important to you and letting some of the other stuff go. And it's scary, but if we
very.
have more to invest into what fills us up and eliminate what doesn't, only good things will come.
Yeah, I love that reminder. I mean, I think that's something that I've been working on. I know other people have been working on it, and it's a very tough exercise. I love doing all the things, so it is
Mhm.
challenging. But thank you
Yeah.
so much for
Thank
today, Jen.
you.
I know we're at time, but this was so helpful to our audience and we're going to send this to everyone that has registered. It's going to be on our YouTube channel. So if you want to share this with others in your network or other friends that you think would be helpful, I think this is really relevant. I'm going to be sharing it with some of my friends as well. So thank you so much, Jenny. We've learned so
Thank
much
you.
today. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks everyone joining and thanks for the opportunity. And if you ever need support, I'm a LinkedIn DM away.
Yes, connect with us, follow us, and the next one's going to be May. I believe it's going to be May 22nd. So watch out for that. And we'll talk to everyone real soon. Thank you so much for
Awesome.
being
Thank
here.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye.